right, you guys? I guess you can see me. Okay, I'm gonna try to finish this today. I'm gonna try to be, is this where the video is? Okay, I'm gonna try to be quicker than I've been before, but as you know, whenever anybody promises that, they take a long time. So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry in advance. Anyway, what I'm going to do today, yesterday I told you very clearly, and I'm not going to read it again, but GTII has put out a press release that they can confirm they have no knowledge, nor is there any indication that Kurt Kramer and Seth Kramer and any of their entities are shorting GT or manipulating the price of GTII stock. Also, I told you that Gibson Dunn is has sent at least to one investor, but I think it's more than that, trying to put a distance between GTII's market trading and their clients, the Kramers. I mean, I think it's odd that by doing that, I think Gibson Dunn actually makes the link more clear, because somebody's paying the Gibson Dunn fees, and they're not cheap. So I think this, there we go. Annoying. Anyway, oddly, I think they're calling attention to the potential link rather than dismissing it. But anyway, so I've made clear, and the third thing I made clear is that here it is, another source, just so you see. This is from the Courthouse News Service. And this is dated November 26, 2013. And a New Yorker who runs 3 Mazuma corporations will pay $1.4 million to settle an SEC complaint. The SEC filed a cease and desist order against Kurt Kramer of Glen Head and his companies, a bunch of Mazumas. It claims Kramer violated federal securities laws by buying billions of shares in 2 microcap companies and failing to register them before reselling them at a profit. It sounds so benign when they write that, but this is destroying equity and the American dream, and it's destroying the wealth of investors in these companies. This is something that, these are facts that Kramer agreed to, so I can say to you that he, by doing this, is deciding that because of his extra specialness in the world and his brains, he knows what to do with these investors' money, these shareholders' money, better than management and better than those shareholders. He takes that money and he uses it up in Glen Head. He uses it on the golf courses, at the charities, for his family, for schools, for paying lawyers' fees for Gibson Dunn. So he is an economic engine, but it's not where these people who invested in Laidlaw Energy Group wanted their money to go. But anyway, that's what's that in Family Guy? That's Quagmire. That's Kramer. So Kramer agreed to disgorge $1.1 million, which is how much he made, plus $129,000 in interest, and pay penalties of $273,000. So it's a slap on the wrist. Doesn't harm him at all. As customary, though, and this is important, he does not admit to having done anything wrong. So by agreeing to this settlement, Kurt Kramer of Glen Head does not admit to doing anything wrong. But all right, so for those three reasons, the release from the public, from GTII, my knowledge that at least one shareholder received a communication from Gibson Dunn, and the fact that that Kurt Kramer anyway, signed a cease and desist that he would never in the future violate the Securities Act of 1933 or the registration requirements. Essentially, he wouldn't sell shares without a prospectus or a filing with the SEC in the future. So as we know, that has penalties if he doesn't follow it. And so for those three reasons, we can agree amongst ourselves that it's probably not the Kramer short selling. Okay, I got that all out of the way. The purpose of this call today is to tell you why I think it very likely and almost certainly was the Kramers initially. In other words, during the time of the toxic convertible note, they almost certainly sold shares. Somebody did. And I'm going to address that. It's quite possible that one could make a really good argument that since then, there's a Latin term that I don't know, but it means who benefits, something bene. So who benefits for all this really risky, disastrous short selling that's been going on in GTII, which you can locate. Another word for short selling is failure to deliver, failure to locate, selling long, telling your market maker that you have long shares, pretending that they're coming. These are all violations of Reg Show if you haven't located the shares, if you haven't borrowed them, and if you don't deliver them basically in 6 days. You get a little bit of an extension. The whole point of Reg Show is to give the market makers this way of managing the market. Of course, everything's electronic now. Everything on those tickets go into these dark pools. They're quick, zip, zip. And so there's probably no need for crappy market makers like Puma, OTCX. Trying to remember some of the others. I should have written them down. These are underfunded guys. As Hamster told me, he said, Bill, you probably have more money than OTCX. CX. Of course, that depends on how much money I have. But his point is these are underfunded groups that are just in there to take advantage of Reg Show to get some order flow, and it's possible they all work together. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this video, Time Life video, I'm going to show to you why the Kramers are trapped, and I am going to say it's the Kramers who sold shares under the auspices of this note, and then they didn't expect Reichman to buy it out. So I think whatever that amount of shares, they are trapped, and that's I think almost certainly that's the Kramers. Then I'm going to ask you who benefits from doing a really crappy short. There is no professional short. There's no person that would load up on shorting GTII at 40 cents, 50 cents, 20 cents, 10 cents, then 75 cents, then $1, and then maybe they got some off at $4 when it spiked. There's nobody that would take the risk on that trade and not cover. There's no covering. There's no selling at the ask, buying it back as the stock goes back down. So you, as you listen to me, I'm not going to say it's the Kramers because we've already agreed that it can't be the Kramers or that we don't have that knowledge. But just ask yourself who benefits, and I'll let you come to your own conclusions. I think there's a trapped short in GTII. I think the position is massive, so I'll come straight out and say what I think is going to happen. There is there's going to be a buy-in at some point, and it's going to be like a one of Elon Musk's rocket ship. It is just going to explode to the upside when the buying comes in. Okay, so I wanted to bring one more company into your eyeballs about the Kramers. Can't get away from them. Okay, so this is from Law Commentary. It's dated June 18, 2022, which, I don't know, that's weird. I don't know if that date is when I printed it out or I happened to get something that was dated the same day I printed it out. Sorry, there it is. It's dated October 13, 2021. Echoing recent SEC actions in similar suits, so there's a bunch of these going on. Music tech public company Venue, VNUE, sues Power Up Lending Group Limited, and Kurt Kramer in toxic lender lawsuit. I'm just reading it. I'm not alleging anything, or I'm just reading news. So I won't read it all, just the highlights. I just want to get it in the record. Venue, VNUE is the stock symbol, Venue, a micro cap national music tech innovator, filed lawsuit in New York against Power Up Lending and founder Kurt Kramer. They accused the plaintiff, who is Kurt Kramer, alleging they are a, quote, death spiral or, quote, toxic lender, an unregistered securities dealer that sells convertible market adjustable securities products to small public companies. Businesses, it describes them, businesses that are struggling to raise capital. So anyway, the point is, this suit is accusing Power Up Lending and its founder, Kurt Kramer, of selling unregistered securities, acting as an unregistered securities dealer. It's just quoted here. It's not my notes. Over the last 2 years, there has been an uptick in and this is when I told you that hell is coming for breakfast. I'm starting to believe that the SEC is going to do something. I've been really skeptical and disappointed. But anyway, over the past 2 years, there has been an uptick in the SEC enforcement actions against unregistered dealers that provide toxic financing by purchasing toxic convertible notes from small public companies. Now, as I went through ad nauseum, I think that's Latin for boring. I went through as a bunch of legalese the last couple of posts, showing that Kurt Kramer came in as amicus curiae or whatever. He filed a brief making all sorts of arguments why this is a risky business and why, I'm not going to go back through it, but he admitted that he does the same business as these guys do, and as I guess what he's not admitting is that he's an unregistered securities dealer per se. But my point is that he does a lot of legal talking. He's got good lawyers, and there's a fog of confusion. So this call, what I want to come up with you, because I'm doing some of my thinking as I'm talking, I want to come up with why this stock is going to go up. What is going to effing make this stock go up? I do not believe it's going to be legal action. Legal action cools everything. It takes 2 years, 3 years, and then you settle. Documents are hidden. Elections change. People's minds go on something else. So I don't think it's what's going to change your life if you're invested in the stock is legal action. But I do think what's going to happen is it's the actions of a lot of these players. They're all human beings. And it so far has been in their mutual interest with the Kramers, and whoever the short is. Let's just grant Gibson Dunn that it's not the Kramers or an entity controlled by the Kramers or orchestrated by the Kramers. Let's grant that. So some idiot from the time February 26, 2021, Global Tech Industries Corp. Inc. retires Geneva Roth Remark Holdings Inc. convertible debt. So a little bit over a year ago, actually a lot more than a year ago, they basically a year and a half, I guess, they retired that debt. So since then, somebody has been selling, and it comes from FINRA. You can see it on OTCshort.com, I think that's it. But anyway, it's data from FINRA that somebody has been selling every day, every month, roughly 50%, sometimes it's 70%, sometimes it's 20% of the outstanding volume is an exemption of Reg Show, failure to deliver shares. I've been watching this very closely, and one of the reasons that the Kramers originally and now whoever's doing it is it's kind of like an old man walking around his apartment in these new condos that are all glass windows, and he doesn't realize there's people across the street laughing and taking pictures as he parades around. This is all out in the open. You can see the volume. Nobody's buying it back. So somebody is shorting. And what I want to convince you with several points is that trigger is going to happen. That trigger is going to happen. And soon. These are trapped shorts. They are FUCKED. And I put this video up as an adult video, so I can say that. Okay, so it's a death spiral. I said that there's an uptick in the SEC is upticking its enforcement actions. When a company does this kind of toxic lending as a business, it is acting as a dealer as per the specific language in the Act of the Securities Act, Section 15, I'm not going to bring that up, which requires registration as a dealer. That's what it says here. I'm not personally making that statement. Venu alleges that Power Up Lending and Kramer are indeed toxic lenders operating as unregistered dealers because their agreements included specific provisions that usually result in securities transactions that harm small businesses and especially target penny stocks, which it says here is much less regulated than the NASDAQ or the NYSE. I suppose that's true, although there is a little, NASDAQ used to be over the counter. I think it's now owned by the NYSE. So I think there's a blurring of the lines. The defendants are accused of targeting numerous penny stock issuers that had either experienced large trading volumes or had the potential to have such large volumes. Venu claims that the defendants could then, quote, easily convert and quickly sell the shares after the required 6-month holding period, unquote. It's my contention, with belief and knowledge, that these kind of toxic lenders start selling before the end of the 6-month holding period. They have in their pocket this irrevocable transfer from the transfer agent that's in the contract they sign with these poor companies. So they know if they can just fail to deliver, and they can work with the market makers. This is my opinion, working with the market makers. And when one prime broker calls up and says, hey, let's not call it the Kramers. We'll call it Kermit the Frog. Kermit, your you haven't delivered, and this is overdue. Okay, I'll take care of it. They call up another through another LLC and another market maker. They put a bid out there. They sell stock to them. Sorry, they put a bid out, sell it to the one that hasn't failed to deliver. Hey, it's all cleared, but it's just moving non-existent shares to other non-existent shares. Nobody looks too closely. It's really odd. The security system is computerized in a lot of ways. I think the compliance system is computerized. Any of you that have opened an account, once you fill out the forms, you get approval to sell covered calls, or maybe even you get the higher standard where you can sell naked puts. Once it's in the system, unless you really abuse that account, and as long as you are careful to not go too far into the red zone, it's all automatic from then on. You can type in your orders and it happens. So for some reason, that's all computerized to work, and it handles probably trillions of dollars worth of transactions a week. But the settlement system, for some reason, is not computerized. I can't explain that, except that people are making money off of it. Okay, so anyway, in court documents, Vanu alleges that the Kramers is a toxic lender. Quote, from at least 2015 through the present, Kramer and Power Up bought and sold billions with a B, of newly issued shares of microcap securities, i.e. penny stocks, and generated millions with an M, millions of dollars from those sales, but failed to comply with the mandatory dealer registration requirements of the federal securities laws. The lawsuit states that Power Up Lending from 2015 to 2021 engaged in more than 612 securities transactions and, quote, converted and sold over 5.2 billion shares of stock, generating tens of millions of dollars in gross stock sale proceeds, with many other securities transactions through convertible notes and other market adjustable securities still outstanding, unquote. The CEO goes on to explain that he took these notes reluctantly. I'm not going to read all that. And he goes on to talk about unregistered dealers. Now the guy, the lawyer here is, sorry, I thought I had it to show you, is Basile, there it is, Mark Basile Esquire, law firm. I guess that's right there. So anyway, it goes on. So I wanted to get that into your thoughts, that this VNUE, Vanu, is suing them and alleging what I just said, billions of shares sold. So by doing this, I'm just trying to show you that it's more than just GTII. It mentions Kurt Kramer specifically. It mentions Power Up Lending specifically, and it's a pattern of behavior. And even though that document doesn't just say it, I have the opinion that when they sign one of these contracts, they start selling fail to deliver phantom shares. There's a woman that wrote a book about short selling, Dr. Susan, begins with a T. I read her book. It's depressing as hell. She did so much work and nothing happens. but she calls them phantom shares, not counterfeit. She calls them phantom. So they're phantom shares sold in that 6-month period, in my judgment. And it just happens through the volumes there, and it just makes too much sense. You're a guy like Kermit the Frog, you originate this note or you buy it from this pitiful company who has no choice but to turn to you, they think. It's like a deal with the devil. Like the Lord says, even now you can turn to me. You can turn away from these horrible notes. There's another choice out there. But I guess companies get so desperate, they feel like they've got to do a deal with the devil. And I think a lot of people don't think it through. This is confusing stuff. I mean, I claim when I go through customs in the UK and they say, why are you here? What's your profession? I say I'm an investment banker. So I claim to be that. But even this stuff, Hamster has taught me stuff that I couldn't even believe was happening. But the reason I feel able to talk somewhat with you guys, it's already 26 minutes, I'll get through these points, is I've been in the financial services industry since I was, should I tell you my age or what year? I got my number in 1981. I think that's right. And then I remember 1983 as it was 1981. So that's as long as I've been doing this. So I have some, gut instinct about some of this stuff, or knowledge. I hope it's helpful. Okay, I wanted to go on. I've got just 3 pieces of evidence to put into the record with you guys. This is from that same person in Florida, Securities Lawyer 101. The title is SEC Obtains Final Judgment Ordering Frederick Sharp to pay $52 million. $52 million. This is what starts getting me thinking that the alarm bell's going on in the Kramer camp. And I'm talking pre-February 26, 2021. I'm not saying anything afterwards. I think they got trapped in this convertible note from them. It's massive at that time. So they're trapped. You see, is that a halo? Because I can't do anything about it. It's a light. It's not God. I'm not that special a person. Okay, so I'm reading from this. I'll try to do it quickly. But on Friday, May 12th, 2022, the SEC announced that it had obtained a final judgment against Canadian resident Frederick L. Sharp. In August of 21, the SEC charged Sharp with leading a fraudulent scheme that generated hundreds of millions of dollars from unlawful stock sales and caused significant harm to retail investors in the United States and around the world. $50 million in monetary relief. According to the complaint, Sharp masterminded a complex scheme from 2011 to 2019 in which he and his associates enabled control persons of penny stock companies whose stock was publicly traded in the United States securities markets to conceal their control and ownership of huge amount of penny stocks and then surreptitiously dump the stock into the U.S. markets in violation of federal securities laws. The services said Sharp and his associates allegedly provided networks of offshore shell companies, networks of offshore shell companies by the seashore to conceal stock ownership, arranging stock transfers and money transmittals, and providing encrypted accounting and communication systems. According to the complaint, Sharp and his associates facilitated over $1 billion US, I assume, not Canadian, in gross sales in hundreds of penny stock companies. On May 12, 2022, the U.S. District Court of the District of Massachusetts entered the final judgment of default. It enjoins him from violating the anti-fraud provisions of the Section 17 of the Securities Act of 1933 and the Securities Act of 1934, and that same Rule 10b, which I think is the dealer having to be a registered dealer, I think. Anyway, the judgment orders him to disgorge that amount of money I already said. Then it says the complaint filed against Sharp also links to several other SEC actions over the past several months that we all also wrote about. And I'm not going to read them all, but there's she makes a list of several, and it's big money. SEC charges 15 individuals with $194 million in penny stock fraud. Sting to take down a bunch of people, and more individuals in a dump money laundering operation in penny stocks, which is an interesting thing. It's possible what's going on with these guys up there is laundering money. You don't know. It's a point Hamster makes. You don't know where the money goes and comes from for this stuff. Could be terrorists, but no one follows it. So anyway, wanted to bring that up to you, that the SEC is going after these big stealers of money from penny stock investors. And that's what GTII is. Okay, one more, and then I'm gonna try to give you my reasons why GTII is going to explode to the upside. And if I had to guess, purely guess, it's gonna happen sometime between now and the time that, I'm not gonna make any political jokes. I'll lose my audience. Okay, this is from Business Week, and it's dated May 4, 2022. Business Week. And it's about Bill Wong, Archegos Capital Management. But I love this headline. Can you read that headline? Wall Street isn't ready for the crackdown coming its way. It's easy in this GTII when we're just focused on the tree to lose sight of the forest, and the SEC only has so many bulldozers to knock down these trees, and I hate it when they kill a tree, but you know what I mean. So they just haven't maybe gotten to GTII, or what I think's happening, it's not GTI, it's I gotta be February 26, 2021 Kramers. It's them, and then whoever is doing the selling since. Okay, so Bill Hwang's lawyers couldn't believe it. The fallen billionaire investor. Broad inquiries by that is causing Wall Street to pay attention. They're examining block trades, short sales, and well-timed wagers. They all center on the same question: are markets rigged? Are markets rigged? Are markets rigged? So what's going on in this one stock and many others, but we're all focused on GTI, does lead to the conclusion that markets are rigged. So this gives me hope. Now, this gives credit to Biden administration officials. I'll accept that. Have spent the past year laying groundwork to pursue white-collar crime more aggressively, rolling out policy changes, some disclosed, some not disclosed, that will make probes easier to start, faster to finish, and more punishing. The U.S. Department of Justice has quietly ratcheted up pressure on big banks to look for market abuses and then turn in its staff and clients. And there's a growing willingness among prosecutors to use tough federal laws against Wall Streeters that were designed to target gangsters. This is what I'm trying to get into your head. The SEC is also seeking, it seems like, according to this article, larger civil penalties. Another thing to get into your head. Senior leaders at the agency have stopped accepting ad nauseum meetings with defense attorneys like Gibson Dunn, looking to talk their clients out of trouble. So this clever guy that brought his amicus brief into that other deal, Kramer, isn't going to be using his brain and his argumentative need to win the argument every time skills. Maybe the SEC is going to be tough. I can't pronounce this guy's name. This is the head of the SEC's enforcement division, Gerbir Grewal. Quote, "There's a perception that there are two sets of rules. We want everyday Americans to have confidence when they invest in the market. They should have confidence knowing that there's a dedicated group of professionals to deal with new threats, traditional frauds, making sure that their retirements are safe," unquote. Many Wall Street denizens, you know what that is, a denizen. A cockroach is a denizen of a kitchen, a deer is a denizen of a forest, and I guess overpaid wankers are denizens of Wall Street. But they don't seem to grasp what's afoot, even as Bill Huang's treatment underscores the shift. Blah, blah. On the very day that Bill Huang's lawyers thought they were going to have another productive meeting with U.S. investigators, prosecutors filed sealed indictment against him and Archegos chief financial officer. Anyway, and this is what I want to get to you. That included a charge under, drum roll please, Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act, also known as RICO, commonly known as racketeering. Authorities allege that the pair lied to banks and manipulated stock prices. Lied to banks. Would that apply in the case of pre-February 2021? Possibly. We don't know what was said on these calls. But is it possible whoever was entering the orders to sell these shares with failure to locate, failure to deliver? We know for a fact the shares were never delivered. We can see that in the market. So is that lying? It says right here, the pair lied to banks. So is that lying to market makers, lying to prime brokers? The SEC's going after lying to banks and manipulating stock prices. And I'll get into a little bit what Ham always talks about on his 20 minutes to the close call. It's the most exciting call on Wall Street. It's better than Kramer later on. You know, the Boo-wah Kramer with a C. It's better. It's almost better than the Money Honey. I forgot her name right now. She's great. Maria Bartolomeo, when she used to run it. There is no better financial call on the street than when the hamster has a call from 3:40 to 4 o'clock. You will be riveted. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco commended prosecutors for the speed of their 13-month investigation. This GTII short selling's only been going on since then, about 18 months. So these legal things take time. This is exactly the kind of criminal case that the Department of Justice should prioritize, she said. Then came a hint, quote, "and we will continue to do so," unquote. Behind the scenes, the feds have been gathering information on dozens of banks, investment firms, and their executives. We started digging through the wreckage. I'm trying to go quickly. Going quickly. Okay, then it goes. I'm just going to go where I highlighted now so I can be quick. You poor people have to listen to me. You don't. You can always turn it off. A Bloomberg Businessweek analysis showed that in dozens of cases, big spikes in warrant trading preceded announcement by SPACs that they had reached an agreement to buy a business, sending their shares and the warrants soaring in value. The agency is yet to accuse anyone of wrongdoing. Crackdowns on Wall Street are somewhat cyclical, not cynical, cyclical. There was a speech given by the Justice Department's #2 official in 2021 saying that prosecutors will lean harder on banks and other companies to inform the government of wrongdoing within their ranks and among their customers. To agree, that's what banks have always been expected to do. But justice officials have gained more leverage in recent years. A number of banks entered into settlements known as non-prosecution or deferred prosecution agreements that let them avoid criminal convictions in the past. This made me almost get interested in this subject matter again. Listen to this. These agreements these banksters entered into to avoid prison, to avoid fines, to avoid loss of reputation, there's a catch. The deals require banks to, quote, unquote, cooperate with ongoing and future probes, which has long meant responding quickly to requests. It is, to the Justice Department, what this means, it now means acting as a market informant. Okay, I want to stop there. It praises, it brings up racketeering again, and it praises Gary Gensler, and after the comparatively lax Trump years. Might be fair, but anyway, Gary Gensler talks about how he wants to make the markets more fair. The agency's focused on speeding everything up, and they're going to add 30 more people to its litigation group in the coming fiscal year. Quote, Gensler is an aggressive regulator, unquote, says Liz Davis, who worked at the CFTC when she ran that agency. She's now a chair at a boutique law firm called McGonigal. So, anyway, that's in Business Week, and those are the things I wanted to enter into your head. So, why? Okay, now I'm going to tell you that I believe that we have a short trapped. I think it's one short. and their related companies. I believe I know the name of that short who thought he was covered up until February 26, 2021, and that is Geneva Roth Holding and its originator, Kurt Kramer. Does that make me look? Does that look better or farther away? How about now? Does it seem closer or farther? I don't know. I can't tell if that's helping. Yeah, you shouldn't be watching me anyway, just listening. You can look at the flowers or something. Okay, so here's the. I'm going to try to go through the several things that GTII is doing. The Hammeister told you about Dole Foods. Dole Foods went private, and there were 13 million shares, 30% I think, of the company's existing shares came in to accept the cash offer, and everyone looked at each other. Where did these shares come from? Well, these are all the IOUs brokerage firms put into your accounts because, as I've called it, the settlement system has become a fractional reserve settlement system because they figured nobody's going to come for the stock all at once. Well, in the case of Dole Foods, they did come for the stock all at once. They got caught short. Well, guess what? The mothership of Wall Street, DTCC, just made good on the cash offer, buried it, and the press went on making the Kardashians billionaires. Nothing to see here. Well, the financial markets are based on confidence. That should be something the press wrote about, that said we can't trust the DTCC, the FINRA, the SEC, and the brokerage firms with these electronic entries in our statements. They used to be called Type 1 and Type 2. It's all Type 2 now. Type 1 was it was in your name. Type 2 was that it was in street name. It was marginable, and it could be lent out. Everything is in street name now. You cannot hold anything at your brokerage firm in your own name. And so then it goes to the DTCC, and this repository we're supposed to trust. In fact, it's in the name, the Depository Trust Corporation. It's like Fred's Bank. Steve Martin talked about you would never give money to Fred's Bank. I'll take the money and I'll put it in this pocket. Fred's Bank. You got to put trust in the name. Well, that's a big violation of trust, the whole system. But it got buried, and it was one example, and it's the only one that I can think of hypothetically that would ever happen to test this fractional reserve custodialship system, which expands assets under management. It makes what all these guys that went to the same, and girls that went to the same 5 schools, and you know, I was going to say they wear red socks and the pinky ring, but I don't know if women do that. So anyway, they all are this exclusive. They're this exclusive group in Wall Street that get paid for assets under management. You know, hedge funds get paid for assets under management. Retail brokers get paid for under management. Every time there's a retail broker, it's called a wealth manager. There's an office manager that gets paid on part of the assets under management. There's a regional manager. There's a national manager. And then it goes all the way up. Everybody makes money on it. I do oil and gas. And I remember back when brokerage firms would pitch oil and gas deals. I did a 1 or 2 real estate partnerships when I was a broker, and I stopped because you could see that the buildings were see-through. But it's always presented to the retail investor. Mike Milken once said, if you want a tax loss, call a retail broker. The only person on the ass end of the food chain worse than a retail client is the retail broker. But anyway, you present these package deals as it's an 8% yield with an equity kicker, and you could make 20% along the way. Well, in oil and gas, there's a lot more to be made, usually when the investment succeeds, and that's what pays all these regional managers' fees, national brokers' fees. It pays for the parties out on town, the conferences. So, but what's in it for the oil and gas companies and the retail investor is it's really nice glossy material. You have the assurance that this wire house has done their due diligence, but you've signed an arbitration contract, so you really can't sue them if it doesn't work. And this applies to hedge funds, assets under management. All right, enough on that. So you've got what the Hammeister talks about is Dole Foods. Well, GTII, and this is my reason numero uno. GTII is the first public company that Hamster's aware of, and he's been doing this for longer than most of you have understood this situation. I think he says he's been involved in the short markets over 20 years. I bet it's longer. He's been a trader, since the 80s, early 80s. So he points out that GTII is the first public company to cause a share count. So what GTII is doing, and here's what's happening. This is 50 minutes, 52 minutes. I'm going to just keep going. You can pause at any time and listen again later. I'm not going to stop and then do another one. So I have a feeling this is going to be an hour and a half, and I apologize. In the future, I'll learn how to do these shorter. But okay, number one is that GTII is creating a synthetic sort of run on the fractional reserve custodial bank by saying we want a share count. What they've done, it's very clever. They've one of their major shareholders bought I wish I knew the name, the crypto coin. It's on the website. Build Back Better Crypto, or is that Biden? Build Back Better Crypto. Anyway, they bought it, and they're going to issue Shiba Inu coins, the dog, the Japanese dog, to all GTI shareholders of record of last month. We all had to fill out I have a small position. We all had to fill out a affidavit almost. It wasn't called that, but we had to say how many shares we had, who was our brokerage firm, and sign it. So in essence, it's pretty serious if you're not honest about that. But most Americans are honest. Most Americans tell the truth. Most people tell the truth. I would argue some people like to argue small details of law and meaning when they're as smart as Kurt Kramer, Seth Kramer, their brother, and the lawyer that's in the office with them. I'm not sure Charlie Mayo is on their level of intelligence. I don't know, but he's the one, remember, that's one of my reasons down here. He's the one that made the phone call in and said, Reiki, this is whatever, Charlie, Carlos, whatever, this is, he identified himself somehow. We've been I've talked with the boys, and we're ready to make an offer to buy shares from the company to help Reichman get more money than I ever seen after they've driven the stock price down with selling shares that don't exist. Then they want to take that cash, go buy the stock, newly issued stock from the company, pocket the difference. And in this case, it's probably 40 to 50 million shares, at least 10, 20, 30 cents a share are spread. Call it 10 cents on 40 million. You're gonna say, don't you know, can't you do arithmetic? Is that $4 million profit or 400,000? I think it's $4 million profit. It's good work. You're not digging ditches. You're not, you're not driving a cab. And if you settle with the FCC, you're not going to jail. So anyway, number one reason, GTII has a share count. It's happened already. It's maybe getting perfected as we go along. But what happens, and I'm explaining this to people maybe you don't understand, when you enter an order to a broker, to me, a bill, okay, I do it. It goes down to the trading desk. Trading desk sends it to a market maker. Market comes back, it's filled, and you send the cash in on time, and the stock goes into your account. But the way the system is now, it's not, for some reason, in this age of massive computer power, the SEC, FINRA, brokerage firms, the DTCC cannot track, or at least they don't let us know whether they can track an individual stock certificate or multiple stock certificates. They should be able to do it. Anyway, so that goes into your account, and it's just an entry. So it's a journal entry, it's electronic entry. You don't know if that represents real shares or just an IOU. Well, that responsibility gets kicked up the chain to the DTCC. The DTCC is standing behind everything. That's why they covered the Dole Foods mistake. So GTII is getting this count, and so they're going to America. They're going to have a count of clients that have self-reported that we have our account at Ameritrade. I'm going to make numbers up right now. So the transfer agent, Liberty Transfer, which never knows, that's the DTCC, is not transparent. There's only usually one reason for that. It's to hide something. But anyway, the transfer agent for GTII is going to be able to know now, let's say a number of shareholders reported that they own a total of, I'm going to make the number up, 20 million shares of GTII held at Ameritrade. Well, the transfer agent checks with DTCC, and DTCC says, no, we only show 9 million shares held by Ameritrade on behalf of its clients. We decay the rest of that. We don't know what that means. So now the company, because they got the data and it's their transfer agent, they now know there's a discrepancy that I made up in this case of 11 million shares that, according to Ameritrade, clients exist, but according to the DTCC, don't exist. Well, this is the first time a public company has caused this count to happen all at once. It's kind of like a synthetic run on the bank. And it's calling out the DTCC, but it's also calling out the prime broker, maybe plural for the Kramers. It's at least one. It's calling out all the trading firms that have retail accounts. And it's gonna call out the FINRA oversight system, which is a self-regulatory body, which I guess was relatively lax in the Trump years and now is ramped up in the Biden years. I think it's been lax since Reagan. But that's just an opinion. Can't prove it. So this is the first time, and this is why I think there's going to be a trigger, a match that lights the fuse. Now, you're all waiting for that count. I know you are. A lot of people, I read it on the comments. Not my comments. No one's commented on my thing, but on, the Twitters. So I think what's happened with the count is that it's largely done, largely finished. A friend of mine said only meat is done. Okay, so it's largely completed. There's a helicopter circling me. I live close to the White House, so I think it's a perimeter they maintain sometimes. I don't know. Anyway, so the count, I think, is essentially completed. It may be 70% instead of 100%. You're never going to get 100%. But I think out of caution, GTII is sending a letter to people that did not respond by email or because of the notices online, because some people still live like the settlement system. Some of us still live in the last century. I'm not talking the 20th century, I'm talking the 19th century. We still live by the slow mail and the settlement system. They still can't count failure to delivers and require delivery for settlement in 6 days. That's all that is allowed by Reg Show. Nobody enforces it because no one can get it done. Ugh. Anyway, I think the count is finished. I think that what's happening is that, just to be careful, the GTII doesn't want somebody to say that they weren't thorough enough in getting everyone involved in the record date for the 4 coins of Shiba Inu, which are worth, I don't know what they're worth now, I haven't looked, but they're not worth very much. But it's fun, it is fun. And they could be worth a lot someday. It's unlikely. Shiba Inu doesn't have any limit on the number of coins that can be created. So it's unlikely, unless they start burning coins sometime, that'll ever get that high. But what's interesting about Shiba Inu is that it's accepted, it's gotten worldwide acceptance, and like blockchain, what this does is level the financial services field worldwide, so people in Asia, people in Africa have access to these coins through their phone, and so these banks don't have as much of a role anymore. Maybe that's the concept. So it's really interesting. So I'm happy to get those coins myself. It's not going to change my life, but it's exciting. So anyway, I think that's one reason for the delay. I think the second reason for the delay is I think the company is, and you would do the same thing. If your teenage son got in trouble and you found out about it, you'd go talk to him first before you told everyone else. If you found out at your firm that there's rumors that one of your friends is, I don't know, stealing computers from the firm, you'd go talk to your friend first. I think that's what's happening. GTII is going to FINRA and the SEC, the market makers, maybe the DTCC. We don't know, they do not know who the prime broker is. I wish we did. That would end this right away. The whole thing would end. That's the holy grail, finding out the Kramer's prime broker. But I think that what's happening is they're going to the regulatory bodies first, the overseers first, before they make a public announcement. I wholly support that. I think that's brilliant. You don't want to piss off the regulatory people. But the count's been done, and GTI has already announced, I don't have it here to show you, you can go on their website, go on Yahoo. They've already announced they found anomalies. I don't know if I'm supposed to look there or there, so, but they've already found that they have anomalies. So that means that the count has found a discrepancy. So that's my reason number one. That's my reason number one. Now I'm going to go on to number two. I showed you the two stories that have brought it up already. But the SEC is starting to use RICO laws, racketeering. And I didn't print it out. I'm not going to bore you. There's a whole big thing. But basically, what racketeering is it was originally designed to catch gangsters, I guess around the time of Bob Kennedy, to come up with a supra law that would get them all in a net. And that is that essentially that people work in a gang or a mafia or a group, or they cooperate with each other to break the law. And the sanctions are pretty bad. As I just read, apparently the SEC is going to not settle these things just perfunctorily anymore. So, first reason is we got a share count that we know, and we're reporting to all the bodies. When I say we, I'm talking the collective we. I'm not connected to GTII. I don't know anybody there. And I know some of the shareholders because I pick up the phone and call people. But I don't take my statement of we that I have anything close to GTII. It's just a stock that I follow. So anyway, the first one is the count. The second one is RICO. RICO is being used in by the SEC and the Department of Justice going after these people. Okay. My third reason kind of ties into all three of those first two. My third reason is that market makers are helping prior to this, the Kramers, after February of last year, Kermit the Frog, they're helping the Kermits, defraud investors. How? Okay, I'm going to quickly describe 3 or 4 things they do. Tune into the Hammeister's calls. He explains it every time. As he says, it's the same pattern. He gets bored with it. They don't have, going to short selling 101. It's probably a 4-year course, but it's one thin pamphlet, and it's got 12 rules in it. Sell, 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 and when you're done with that, keep selling. But it's got spoofing. Spoofing is when you go in with a big order on the ask or on the bid, and what it does, it plays with your emotions and my emotions. We are retail investors. We don't have a complete set of information. We were taught by that awful book, Random Walk Down Wall Street, and we're taught by retail brokers that everything there is to know is in the price of the stock. So if we don't have the information and GTII goes from $2.25 down to $1.70, there must be something wrong. I'm gonna give you quick advice on that, but I want to finish this point first. So spoofing, they'll come in and they'll show 20,000 shares to sell at $2, and you bring up your screen. You only have level 1. You don't have level 2 or level 3. Now you can go to OT. Hamster taught me this. You can go to OTC. I forget just type in OTC, it'll come up on Google, but it's the market, it's their market site, and you can get real-time bid and asks. You can see all the market makers on either side. So spoofing, they'll put in 20,000 shares to sell, and there's only 3,000 shares in volume in the whole day, and you go, oh my God, somebody's selling. That's playing on your emotions. But as soon as someone comes up and nibbles at the 20,000, it's spread across several market makers. Each market maker, to my memory, only has to honor 100 shares, and then they can move away like, you know, pigeons leaping away from a speeding truck. So spoofing is a way to panic you. They also do wash trades, which isn't really a way to panic you. That's more that's another reason I'll get to with the real short. Those are the two main things I wanted to say that they do. Implied in all of that is they're working with other market makers. Ham tells me that probably sitting in Great Neck, New York, or wherever this place is, they have an office, and there's several people sharing the same loo that are different LLCs, and then they're buying and selling amongst themselves. I mean, obviously we can't prove it, but the tape is showing that. This is the thing. This stock is only one player. The other stocks, you can't see it. And this is, again, going back to my analogy of an old fat guy walking in front of a window late at night. He can't see out, he doesn't think anyone can see in, but this is what's happening with this. Okay, so they play on our retail investor emotions, and this is the game of the shorts. It's like going to a casino. There's one of the books I read when I was training early on was by, I want to say his name. He was one of the great market timers. I've got a Joe Biden brain. I used to remember every name. I'll remember it probably in 20 minutes. Anyway, he wrote a book. I got it. I copied it out. But on roulette, James Bond had a system of roulette that if he followed it, sitting at a casino, he would usually walk out as a winner. In the European roulette, in American roulette, we have the 0 and the 0-0, which screws the odds. But basically it boils down to, it's not exactly this. I have it somewhere. But basically, if you make a bet, if you have unlimited funds and you make a bet on red and it fails, the next time you double that bet on red and it fails, and the next time you double that and you double that, you know, the roulette wheel, any one roll, it's 50-50 black or red. But you could have a run where it shows up red 20 or 30 times in a row. And if you're the guy, James Bond, sitting there betting with a limited bankroll, and limited could be millions of dollars by the time you're out 30 failures, you're going to get scared. You're going to get nervous. But the house just keeps spinning the wheel because the house knows the law of large numbers, and the house always wins. So if you magically had an infinite amount of money and you went down to the roulette wheel, preferably in Europe, but it could happen here, and you just followed that system. I'm gonna put $100 on red. If it fails, I'm gonna put 200. If that fails, I'm gonna put 400. If that fails, I'm gonna put 800. And you had an unlimited amount of money, you would eventually get all your money back. Eventually. Because it's not gonna be red to infinity. I guess there's a small probability of that. Talk to a scientist. I'm not a mathematician, as you know. So that's my point with what the shorts do. The shorts have almost an unlimited ability. I talked to you on my first video that that's how some Brits say it, video. This system that Wall Street has set up for their benefit and for I just got a Happy Father's Day message there, and I don't know why I'm saying this, except I loved my father, and he died 3 weeks ago, approximately. It might be about 3 weeks ago, and that was difficult. It's difficult to see the Happy Father's Day. I'm not a father, but anyway, so it distracted me a bit. But anyway, so bless you, Dad. Life on this planet is so short, and we're talking about all this money stuff. I'm sitting outside in a beautiful day, downtown DC. It's not maybe the safest neighborhood, but what a wonderful gift. Every day we're born on this, we wake up and we have this beautiful blue planet with the green trees, the mostly friendly animals, a lot of people that are kind. I'm not a Bible thumper, but I think God is present in our lives through other people. And we have a calm climate, at least so far. We have food to eat and water. It's just a wonderful, wonderful gift every single day. And we got all bollocksed up in these financial things. I was saying to a friend earlier today, the two things I wish God hadn't invented: money, and that we have to eat animals. I love animals. Why do we have to eat them? But that's how it's set up. Animals eat animals, and money is how we measure. There's reasons for it. It's commerce, but we get lost in this and we lose happiness. But you've got to enjoy your life now. And if you have a father, I didn't get to say goodbye. So my sister did read. She asked me what would I like to say. I didn't know he was dying. And I sent it, and so I'm thankful for that. I did send flowers for his birthday, which was April 7th, and I said that I was always happiest in my life when I was with you. Love, Billy. So hopefully that's enough, but make sure you are kind to people and you take time to be with your dad if you have a close relationship. If you don't, I don't think you have to. But anyway, sorry. Okay, so my point is the short seller operates in an environment where the wirehouses have decided as a group no longer to operate in low price stocks. They don't have research. They don't accept unsolicited orders. They don't allow their brokers to recommend those shares. When the shares, if they come in, and they have to come in electronically, typically a broker will say, why don't we get rid of that, Mr. Jones, take the tax loss, and let's go in this, Merrill Lynch Asset Management Fund, Malam Fund, that's doing terrifically. And then you don't have to worry and look at this glossy picture. When you're 80, you're going to be really happy. Meanwhile, there's fees attached to that every year. So there's no buyers. The system is set it up so there's no buyers for GTI. There are no, and I'm not saying there would, we're focused on GTII. There's no buyers, retail brokers, or retail clients, other than if you're in our group. Um, the reg show is set up so there's an exemption for market makers. I don't know why we need market makers anymore. Everything's electronic, but we have market makers that, to be a shock absorber in times of market mayhem. Well, in reality, this reg show allows big pools of capital like Ken Griffin's Citadel Fund to rob. I'll use that description, and that's my opinion. They front run, although Gensler's trying to fight that, but they can, with dark pools of money and with paying for order flow, and then with the exemption under Reg Show, which allows you to sell stock that you don't know where the hell it is. They can create massive short positions, maybe just for an hour, maybe just for one day. But in the case of these penny stocks, these bandits, these highway robbers like the Kermits, abuse it, and they steal every single waking day. And they have all sorts of complicated rationalizations. They can file amicus curiae briefs to a court explaining how they're taking so much risk and saying we're doing such a good job, we're so great, let's go on vacation, let's contribute to Children's Hospital. We are wonderful. But paperwork and lawyers, money, distance separates us from our crimes. But those are crimes, and it's theft. But anyway, so the system is set up. There's no buyers. Institutions, by the way, don't buy. They know what's going on, so they don't get involved with stocks under $350 million market cap, and they don't get into stocks under $5, $6, $7, $10. They all have a cutoff. So these stocks don't have any buyers. So in comes the Kermits of the world, and the Kermits are shorting and selling. There's no buyers. They already have the advantage of cheating on Reg Show. They already have the advantage of working in this community of seedy market makers and self-dealing and trading amongst themselves, moving the bucket down the road. But on top of that, they need to set up a system where there are no buyers. So it's shooting fish in a barrel. It's easier than that. So we as retail investors are really up against it. The Kermits of the world can start selling. They can do it because I guess they're partly their track record, but also because no one seems to enforce any of this because of these really questionable toxic convertible notes, the debentures. They can just sell and manufacture more stock than we can buy. So we get sated. We've bought our position and we're all excited and we're ready to go. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. They know human emotion. All they have to do, keep selling, keep selling. And as it goes up, keep selling. We're getting excited. It's finally going to go. They keep selling and selling and selling. And they know eventually we're going to run out of buying power. They're kind of the house. They're kind of that fictional James Bond at the roulette wheel that has an infinite wallet that I made up. So they can just keep selling. They can outsell us. They just can keep outselling. So we lose heart. We lose interest. We see another shiny object. So our retail emotions are susceptible to spoofing, even though we don't even know what's going on. Oh no, there's a big seller. It's all fake. And if you tune into Hamster's calls, he'll show you, and he's amazing how he can almost intuitively guess how much the short is going to be, and he knows what the wash trades are. A wash trade is when, okay, I'll go into the, I want to tell you how to handle your emotions, but I'll go into the real, this is my third reason, is the real short. There's a real short out there that really borrowed shares. So he's paying, or she, it's probably Kermit, or a friend of Kermit's. Might be Miss Piggy, but it's one of the Sesame Street friends. So Kermit has a real short position that is reported. It was over 900,000 shares. You got to borrow the shares. You got to pay margin. You got to put money up, and you've got to pay commission. It's expensive, and they it's hard to know what they paid, but my guess is they have an average price similar to what the Kramers got prior to the buyout of the note, and the Kermits got afterward. So it's probably anywhere from 60 cents a share average to, I doubt it's higher than $1 or $1.25, but we don't know for sure. But they every month it costs them probably 5 cents, 10 cents a share to hold that position. They've got to pay the prime broker they're with. It's an expensive proposition. And they probably did this as a favor to one of the Kermits. So it's a Kermit friend doing it for the Kermits, or it's one of the Kermits doing it with one of the Kermits. And so wash trades are a way, hey, you know, I was helping you out, pal, and I need my money back. I've got over $1 million tied up in this trade, and I need that capital back. All right, let's see what we can do. So it's gone. The other day, Hamster saw it, and this is the advantage. This is the nude man walking around in his kitchen in the brand new condo with glass windows, and he doesn't realize everyone can see him. This is one trapped short that everyone can see. So wash trades happen, and it happened last week. They put up 70,000 shares to sell, and that's one Kermit put up 70,000 shares to sell through an LLC to help out the first Kermit, that's the real short. So then the real short, and they've spoofed the stock down, and they can do it with 100 shares, because all of us are done buying for now, and we're scared, and we're sitting there, ooh, we're going down. And so as it goes down, these guys start crossing shares with each other. And remember RICO, that's criminal activity among a group. That is racketeering. So a lot of my reasons tie in with each other. So anyway, they stair step it down. What's 100 shares at $1.50? $150. They're moving the whole $300 million complex down by trading $150 at a time. You don't think that's coordinated? That's manipulation of stock prices. They get it down, so it guarantees the real Kermit a profit. Let's say he's short, his average price is $125. But remember, not all of his positions are at that price, so he might have sold some at $1.50. And let's say he sold 70,000 at $1.50, and these guys stair step it down to $1.20. And so they put out he's short. So they put out an offer to sell at $1.20, 70,000 shares. He comes in instantaneously and buys it 70,000 at $1.20. That's market manipulation. It's illegal, and it violates, if I'm reading these things correctly, racketeering laws. It violates securities laws. There are some exemptions in securities laws to racketeering. I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it. But as Hamster points out, how many times have you gone in to buy shares in GTII, and you go in? I know one guy, he's reportedly the Duke. I'm not sure if he is, but I heard of one guy went in and tried to buy, I don't know if it was 10 or 20,000 shares. I think he went in at market. So you would think that would get filled at almost ridiculous prices, but it wasn't. So how did 70,000 shares get crossed just like that? They don't think we're watching. They don't think we're watching. We are. So that is a way that they manipulate the price. It's also a way that scares us out, but it's also a way that they have almost infinite power to wait us out. That's my point on that. My other point is, that now that I'm talking about them, the real short is a trigger to the buy-in here. He's gone from 910 million shares short to 860,000. Let's see if he can get to zero. I'm not sure he's going to be able to get to zero before he says, F it, I'm just going to buy in. And because once he starts losing money, he's going to tell the Kermits, I'm not going to rely on your help anymore. You're going to owe me what I lose, which is also criminal. Okay, so quickly put a bracket around this. This is an hour 30. Please just shut this off and come back to it later, or never come back to it. But I want to tell you how you can control your emotions. When I was at Merrill, we had an elderly broker from North Carolina teach us. He was a great guy, Bob Clayton. He would say, sometimes you must be somewhat inured toward those losses which your client incurs. But anyway, he had this saying that I remember. Ask your client this, and this is what I'm saying to you. Ask yourself this. This is one of the ways to manage your tension in this position. What would upset you more? What would upset you more? Let's say you own 1,000 shares of GTII, and you bought it at $2.50, and here it is. You've lost 50% of your money in paper. It's at $1.25, and you're like, hell! My broker's telling me to sell it. I knew I shouldn't have bought it. Farron, why did he even mention it to me? All this. I don't believe there's short sellers. I don't, you can see it. The random walk on Wall Street, the stock price is telling you there's something wrong. All right, so this is a question to ask yourself to help your emotions. Would you be more upset if that 1,000 shares went from $1.25 to zero? Would that upset you? That would upset you. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does that upset you? Or if you wake up one morning and that stock opens at $125. So which would upset you more? Missing out on $100,000 in profit, potentially, if you had a GTC order in, or losing the 1,250 that's left on your 1,000 shares? That is the question that Bob Clayton said we should ask our clients. What's going to upset you more, Mr. Client, is if the stock goes down further, or if you miss out on the potential gains to the upside. Once you answer that question, you act on that answer. Second thing, to control your emotions. There was a different person when I went to training in New York. I remember him physically. I don't remember his name. He was not Bob Farrell, but he was another technical analyst. Bob Farrell taught us. I just don't, it doesn't matter what his name is. But what he said is what you do as a retail broker is you study the markets, you study research, you read everything. You read Wall Street Journal, but you read your local papers, you read all the research that comes from Merrill Lynch, you call the companies and ask for other brokerage firms' research, you follow Bob Farrell, you follow Bob Prechter, you follow, God, my brain. There's one at Smith Barney. You follow Harry Lobsher. You follow different ones. Each rider of a horse, in his example, has a hot run. Sometimes that research analyst misses the mark, but you try to judge which analyst has a hot hand at that time. What you try to do is come up with the fundamental reasons that you're owning a stock. Now, fundamentals, I don't think really help in day-to-day trading. However, for the purposes of what I'm telling you right now, fundamentals, the stock price eventually catches up with fundamentals. It eventually catches up there. It could take much longer than you want to wait, but it catches up there. So anyway, fundamentally, you know the story here. And these are some of the many other reasons that it might go up. But we know that GTII owns an eye care facility. We know that it did a deal with Davy Cavalier for art. We know that there's a gold company out of Dubai that they bought. We know that there's we know there's a mining company down in Chile that they were working on. And there was a big bond note that they had to do. And because of the timing of it, they had to announce that they've pulled it off their SEC registrations. But I've never heard that deal's completely done. That could pop up. And we know about this 1-800-Lawyers. That's one of my reasons. 1-800-Lawyers has something like a backlog, if I remember correctly, of $60 million in revenues, and it's going to report something like potentially $30 million in profit. That's a real company. These are fundamental facts, but we also know the two things I just put up first, the share count. I guess that's the main thing. That's a fundamental part of the story that I told you, is the share count has been completed. We know this warrant and these dividends. So there's some fundamental parts to this story that we know. So the second piece of advice I give you to managing your emotions is write down in a notebook the reasons why you own the stock. Write down your goals. And if those reasons haven't changed, I suggest you don't sell the stock. The stock prices are being manipulated. And it's hard emotionally. You know it intellectually. But emotionally, it's hard to watch the stock price go down. But unless fundamentals have changed. We also know that David Reichman is buying shares. These are all reasons to own that fundamentally that the story's improving. This is not Netflix, but then again, Netflix is no longer Netflix. But companies are vibrant things. This is a growing company executing its plan. Okay, so that's the second thing. If you have knowledge that you've built out, you've written down, you check it, none of the things have changed, there's no reason to sell. The third thing I was taught, don't sell something unless you have a better opportunity. Now, if there's something else you know of that you want to be in, that's a reason to sell, and just move on to that. Murder this alternative and move on to that one. But that goes back to the first question. Is it going to piss you off more if your 1,000 shares is worth 100,000 someday, or if you lose it all. That's only you can decide that. I would suggest to you, I'm going to try to explain it, and I know this is taking a long time. Turn it off anytime and start again. But I really want to get this out. Why am I doing this? I'm so frustrated because you've got the Gibson Dunns of the world, these high-powered lawyers scaring everybody that you can't talk about the Kramers. Oddly, in my opinion, the lawyers that are so smart at Gibson Dunn are calling attention to the link. I believe if there weren't something there, they wouldn't be doing it. But I have a theory on why they're doing it, which is one of the reasons here, if I remember to get to it. So when you are dealing with these emotions, ultimately comes down to a decision. How much am I willing to invest in this stock? How much risk reward am I willing to lose? You do not use stop loss orders on this. They'll come take it away from you. So you just got to do it in your head. But I guess my last advice for how to manage your emotions is, right now, assume it's going to take 6 months. Assume it's going to take another year. If you've got all your money in, either plan on peeling off a little bit of the stock at whatever price as we go along, or take enough off the table that you can pay the next 6 months, and then don't think about this, because the Kramers are trying to play on your emotions, and every day you watch it, you're going to get scared and do something. Okay. Enough about that. Enough comedy jokes. So I can't give you advice. This is just talking. I can't give you financial advice. But if you're in the stock, I will tell you that from the outside looking at it, I think this is the best risk reward setup that I know about. I'm pausing because Redbox really intrigues me, but I don't know anything about Redbox. Redbox probably has a lot of different short sellers, a lot of different institutions. I don't know of another story where you know who the short seller is. It's the Kramers originally, and now it's Kermit. So there's two short sellers, Kramers up until February of last year, and then it's been Kermit ever since. So Kramers and Kermit are doing it. You realize I'm trying to honor the caution. Anyway, because it's only one big short trapped, we can watch it happen in slow motion, as Hamster always says. It's a slow motion train robbery in daylight, bank robbery in daylight. Okay, so let me get back to the reasons. First reason is the share count, I think, is already done. Second reason is racketeering. And then I got sidetracked about some of this behavior that these guys are doing amongst themselves, helping each other out. And I got off into our emotions and holding the stock. But a couple of more, I ran through quickly some of the fundamental things. I left out the warrant, the $2.75 warrant, which is massive. All of a sudden, if this stock runs, and I think it will, the company's going to have 30 million warrants at $2.75 exercised, or some subset of that. You go from being a company that the Kramers took advantage of. I mean, that's been announced here. And then the Kermits are taking advantage of now. to having a company with $60 million in the bank? More? Wow. Okay. I want to get back to what are going to be the triggers. I guess my thoughts aren't very clear since it's taking so long to get it. Here's what I think the triggers are going to be. The share count. Are you going to see the share count as quickly as you want to? I don't know. I have no idea. But they've already announced that there's an anomaly. They've also said that they're going to be supplying it to the regulators. All right, I brought up racketeering. Does that give you chills? If someone called you up and said, Bob, we have belief that you're part of a criminal organization, wouldn't you get scared? Well, when we have the share count, it's going to go to FINRA. We, again, the royal we. I mean the group we. It's going to go to FINRA. It's going to go to SEC. It's going to go to the Department of Justice. It's going to go to various lawyers. It's going to go to reporters. It's going to go to DTCC. If I had my way, I had a list, but I can't find it, of 33 prime brokers. There's so many of them. I would, if we could find Kramer's prime broker from originally, and then the Kermit's prime broker might be the same one. That would stop it too. We'd inform them, but it'll get out. And then we inform the brokers that are custodially holding in custody the stock. And we document it. The group we document it. At that point, each individual who are human beings, they have husbands and wives and daughters and dreams, and even though they're part, it really can be argued that all of these people are part of a criminal conspiracy, in my opinion. All of this is my opinion. So they're hurting people, but they have their own dreams and they don't want to be hurt. So you mention racketeering, or you suggest jail time, or you suggest massive civil frauds. It's not going to take long for one of these, the Kramers up until February, the Kermits afterward, February of last year, not this year, are counting on this informal group to all cover their ass. And this group so far goes along with it because they each have a benefit, even if it's just as simple as not wanting to stand out and sweat and be the one that calls it to everybody's attention. So everyone lets it go on. Well, they're once this gets reported, they're going to have a decision to make. Do I want to continue to be viewed as potentially part of a racketeering organization, or do I want to get out? It's now irrefutable that I know this information. I used to have the defense, oh, I didn't know that. Are you kidding me? Round up all the same suspects. I'm shocked that there's gambling in this place. They don't have that escape anymore because they've been notified. So they have a decision. Do we want to be criminals? Do we want to, after the fact, it's like that movie with Ray Liotta, the helicopters. Do they want to be arrested for breaking the law? And I submit to you that as soon as this stuff gets to FINRA, SEC, market makers, brokers, DTCC, and other places, these people are going to start looking at the trades in GTII. then someone's going to buy in. That's my prediction. Secondly, I'm writing a letter and I'm going to send it out. I've looked up all the addresses I can find of market makers, and I'm going to try to copy it to various regulatory bodies and the DTCC. I do not know the prime broker. I haven't gotten as ambitious yet to send it to the brokerage firms, but every brick in the wall. But I think that it needs to be called to the attention of the prime broker eventually. Whoever the Kramers set this initial automatic switch, accept our orders as covered under the conversion feature of our note. That's computerized and set up as automatic. But again, somehow, I told you that before, but just as a reminder, our settlement system is not computerized. It takes forever to locate shares that haven't been delivered and enforce it. But anyway, I believe, and once I have that letter out, I'll give a copy to Hamster, and maybe he can post it, and any of you can use it or change it. But I believe if we notify the market makers and others, they're going to stop taking orders to sell without knowing for sure that there are shares to deliver. I think one of the major triggers we have here is that if we can get them to stop taking the orders and saying, hey, we want to know those are real shares. Remember, the company hasn't issued any shares that are for sale. The only major insider is buying. So as far as the computerized boxes that were checked back in November, I think it was, of 2020, when the Geneva Roth Remark Holdings note was created and the selling started, in my opinion, the note has been retired, so there's no source of funds to cover all those failure to delivers. The company hasn't issued them. We're not selling them. We don't have enough stock to sell to cover it. This is 4 or 5 to 1. So I'm going to get that letter out Tuesday, and it's not a perfect letter, but what I want to do, and I think the company's doing this anyway, but I think more than one of us can do it. I want it so a future lawyer can say they knew. But what I really want is to get these guys and girls to say, shit, I don't want to keep taking these orders. I've been notified. There's a record. So that's one of my triggers, is that as soon as market makers step away and stop taking orders, the Kermits will no longer be able to sell failure to phantom shares, suppressing the stock price. I think another trigger is possibly articles from reporters. A little skeptical, because there's some great reporters out there, but I think journalism's disappeared in the United States. And unless you can Google it, or you get, an approval from above, you're not going to take the risk. Everybody wants to have a nice retirement. So it's going to take a brave journalist, or a young journalist. Even the Woodwards and, what was it, Woodstein? Even now, they're not the journalists they used to be. Now they're shining a spotlight. I hope they don't see me. Okay, so I think I'm losing my energy here. So what are my triggers? I think the real short might start buying in, and then that could start a tidal wave. I think that as players in general realize that the SEC could use racketeering rules, they're going to get really afraid to just quietly go along with the Kermits. I think that good news fundamentally, particularly from 1-800-Lawyers, could start a fundamental reason to buy the stock, which could then get it across the $2.75 warrants that infuses the company with cash. So that could be a tinderbox that takes off. And I'm just looking here, so I can tell I've lost mine. So anyway, I think the and then the reporting shines a light on it. So I think that all of these co-conspirators are going to be reluctant to join in once they've been informed that they're doing it. So I'll just finish with how, God, 2 hours, I'm so sorry. But I'll finish with how I think it's going to play out. I think that the share count is going to shake the system, as I said in a different call. I think it's going to put out alarm bells. FINRA is going to investigate. The SEC is going to investigate. DTCC is going to investigate. And I think they're going to start a buy-in. That's one. Two, I think market makers might stop taking orders, or some of them. Three, I think there'll be an honest player somewhere that says we got to buy this in, a small brokerage firm that says we can't go along with this. And there's also going to be a Me Too-ism, because a lot of these brokerage firms are not going to have enough money to cover the losses. And if let's cover the error while it's cheap, so that'll happen. And I guess my final reason I'll give you, and then I'll just turn this off with my thanks for listening this far, is that I think the Kramers are going to, the Kermits are going to scratch that. Objection, Your Honor. Have that stricken from the record. The Kermits are going to stop selling, because I think what's happening, I think the reason that this law firm came out, Gibson Dunn, and is telling everyone that the Kramers aren't involved, is I think the Kramers may be organizing a settlement, broad settlement on all these claims, so they can stay out of jail, they can stay out of a huge financial, they're going to have to give up a lot of money. And, you can determine it on your own, but the ongoing short selling by the Kermits is so risky. Why would they be doing it? You can decide what you think, but I think that the Kramers anyway are going to maybe sign some deal. Because why'd they hire Gibson Dunn? That's an expensive firm. And so the biggest thing that's exciting, and then I'll get off, is once the Kramers have to start buying from way back when, or their prime broker has to start buying to cover the error, and the Kermits stop selling, and in fact their prime broker has to start buying. The buying is so massive. It's like catching the biggest wave that you've ever caught in your life. And so we won't be sitting here anymore, oh my God, the stock's down, the stock's down, the stock's down. Again, the stock is, I hate again, but the stock is down by, they trade $1,500 worth and it's down 20%. Ignore that. When it goes up, and I don't want you to be greedy, but we are the only sellers when it goes up. So if we all put in our GTCs, all of us, at $20, we could kneecap the running back. But if we stage it higher, There's going to be some clear points where people get out. Everybody gets out at round numbers. Um, you know, when you look at laws of large numbers, sometimes the Fibonacci sequence works, but there's going to be places where everybody gets out. But there's going to be additional short sellers that come in just to play it for a lark, and then it's going to run away and they're going to cover. This thing could, I don't want you to get greedy, but this thing could go to, I think it could be, again, it's not advice, and it's just, it's for kicks and giggles. I don't see any reason why it couldn't be $500 in 50 minutes on its way much higher. That's going to be a lot of buying, and they're not going to care what price they pay. They're going to want to close the error. They're going to want to sweep it under the rug, and even if it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or $10 billion to close it, say it's $10 billion that the DTCC has to ultimately cover. They've got 80 trillion. So they'll do it just to protect the rest of their rafters and their beams. They're all rotten and termite infested by phantom shares and expanded assets under management, failures to deliver in the world's greatest country, the world's biggest financial system. You know, I live in DC and I've lived abroad. This is supposedly the capital of the free world. The roads you should drive on, or you go up to New York and you go in the airports. Go to Dubai. I've not been to China, but the airport's apparently miraculous. I go on Amtrak from here to New York, and when I was in Spain, you can be on these fast trains that go from Seville to Madrid at 220 kilometers, and you barely an hour, and you barely move at all. So we're the first world country, and we have a settlement system that is a joke. And that's what Gensler should do, is fix the settlement system. But in this case, in the case of GTII, when the Kramers in the original, the Kermits now stopped, they already stopped selling. The Kermits have to stop selling. And they turn into, their prime brokers turn into buyers. The whoof is going to be like the wind going up Marilyn Monroe's skirt standing on that subway van as the train went by. The woof is going to be amazing. And it's going to be a better view too. It's going to go high. So I wish you all the best, and I'll endeavor in the future to make much shorter videos. But the reason I did this, the last few so long, I want you guys, I want to provide something that you can listen to while you're nervous, and I want you guys to stay in there, because they're just playing mind games, and they're able to move these chess pieces for, you know, a few $1,000s a day that gives you a pit in your stomach. Rationalize your investment, decide how much you can just put there and ignore or get out. Put in your GTC order, GTC, good to canceled sell orders, and you might be really surprised. I think you are going to be. And if I had to predict when it's going to happen, it's a foolish thing to make predictions, especially about the future. And for those of you who've never heard that, that'll be funny. The rest will groan. Nobody knows. But I think it could be less than, it's going to happen as soon as somebody takes serious. The other trigger I forgot is, I read it to you already, but as soon as the regulatory bodies ask some of these financial institutions for information, they're going to cooperate, and they're going to quit taking orders from the Kermits because the Kermits are small fry. They don't want to destroy their business over the Kermits. When I was at Merrill, they destroyed Bear Stearns, not Bear Stearns, Drexel Burnham, Mike Milken. Wall Street took them out and destroyed their business. But I heard on the Squawk Box, Merrill was doing that same business. They just weren't doing it as well, but they were doing a lot more, and I'm assuming the rest of the street was too. So, do you think the street is going to cover for the Kermits? I don't think so. And I think once the share count gets, the anomalies get to the regulatory bodies, and then they go back to the banks and say, we want this information. We want you to tell us what's going on. Those individuals are going to report because they're going to lose their settlements they made in the past with the SEC and with the DOJ. They agreed to follow the law in the future, just like the Kramers did on their settlement in 2013. So I think this could speed up like a mofo, and all you have to do is get the market makers not accepting the Kermits saying, oh yeah, I got the shares, yeah, I'll deliver them. Saying, no, that's not good enough. We want to know you're going to deliver. We want to know it's going to be within 6 days, as Reg Show says. Otherwise, we're not going to take your order. All of a sudden, there's no sellers. And what if the Duke starts buying into that? So anyway, I really have gone over, and what are we going to talk about when you're all rich? You're all going to be rich. Happy Father's Day. And cheers, mate.